It is going to be super exciting. And I will go live on Facebook into our group and go live on my Podbean. And we are live everywhere. So, hello, Jaime.
Hey, Misha.
You want to just take a deep breath with me and center ourselves, and anybody who's watching or listening, Misha Safran and Jaime Rothbard, we're here to talk to you about joy, pain, the truth of it all, its coexistence. Thank you so much for being here with me today. And I haven't seen you in so long. It feels, I think it's only been a few weeks, but it feels like forever just because my life's been so busy. But I wanted to just land and let people know what's happening for today. So you all in my group, Authentic and Wholehearted Joy, know me. And actually, Jamie's a member of the group, so you may have seen her commenting here and there. But those of you who are watching the replay somewhere else on YouTube or wherever else it ends up, maybe on my Kajabi website or on Jamie's site somewhere, I am a transformational life coach. I consider myself a heartstring healer, and I do heartstring tuning and exploration with lesbian, bisexual, queer, and trans women, identified women who are depleted and lacking self-care and self-love and feeling that their hearts are broken and wanting to have a shift in their life to make themselves a priority, and so that they can then invest themselves into a relationship that's either intimate, romantic, or friendships that just feel really wholesome, as well as experience authentic and wholehearted joy on a daily basis. And I'm super excited. I should say hello to my Podbean pod channel people too. As I ask questions to my dear friend, Jaime Rothbard. Am I saying your last name right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. I like to respect origin. So, but yeah, people on the podcast or in the Facebook would like to answer the questions that I asked Jaime. Feel free to respond to any of the questions that we are entertaining at the moment. And, or if you have a question that is kind of is inspired by our questions or our conversation, please feel free to ask your questions, and I will be checking the Facebook periodically, and I will be checking my Podbean channel periodically, so that I'm just getting my phone ready so I can see all these different things happening at once, so that you all can be involved with us if you so choose. So first, I want to introduce you all to Jaime. I'm going to share my screen and just say welcome. Currently, we are in the Authentic and Wholehearted Joy Facebook group. This is my beautiful friend, Jaime. This is her picture. This is Misha, me. Again, the topic is coexistence, joy, pain, and truth. And today is Thursday. Did everybody know that? Yes, today is Thursday. So Jaime is a transformational coach. So we're both transformational coaches, but we focus on different things with similar results in the sense of the human core and our belief system. And so Jaime is a transformational coach, the founder of Divine Right Body. She brings over 20 years of experience working closely with women in various capacities, all with the goal of understanding how women can heal and transform their lives by tapping into the medicine they carry within. I don't know if you guys, I'm just noticed when I look at Jaime, like she's calm, she's present, she's pulling into herself, she's centering. This is the model of someone you want to work with, be friends with, enjoy having company with. Her work experiences have spanned advocacy for survivors of domestic violence, social work, massage therapy, Reiki, nutrition, coaching, and various energetic healing modalities. She holds degrees in psychology and criminology, is a transformational nutrition coach, and a certified emotion code practitioner. And if that wasn't enough, she is a super proud mother, as am I. Her mission is to teach women to release their self-limiting beliefs and create healthy rituals so they can drop excess weight, ignite their vitality, and fall in love with their bodies. And Jaime has created a gift for all who are listening and watching. It's the Stop Emotional Eating Checklist, and I will end up putting that also in the description so that you all can access it after, after we conclude this interview. So ready for some questions, my dear friend? Or actually, you know what I'd love to do? I'd love to just let you land, check in. How are you doing? How are you feeling? What's up for you?
Well, there's just like so much as I'm listening to and thinking about what you do. And I didn't realize like people could see me when you were reading my bio. And I was just like listening and appreciating so much, finding myself here in the midst of everything. And when I say everything, I'm speaking to your listeners. I'm speaking to you because I know everybody's in the everything right now. And I'm no exception. And neither are you who's listening. And we get to just drop in and be here. And I hope that everybody got to take that nice deep breath with us and in the beginning and just get centered in our bodies. And I'm just finding gratitude, so much gratitude to be here and to be sitting across from you. And to Misha and I, as you mentioned, we're in many, many things together at this moment in our lives. And often when we get together, we're so driven for a particular thing that we're working on. And it feels good just to drop in with you and to talk about seriously my favorite subjects in the world. So thank you for creating the space to do that and for being 14, 15, 16, whatever it is, episodes deep into having these conversations with people at this time. I'm really grateful for you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting. I consider myself an extremely playful, silly, funny person. Funny, not in a negative connotation, but it took me a long time to see those attributes as assets rather than liabilities. And the cohort that I'm in with you, it's been so beautiful to find that these are assets, along the journey that I've been doing myself, but to hear it from people like you and other friends saying, yeah, this is an asset. Whereas I've had experiences where these things that are now considered assets, they were considered liabilities. I was too silly, too playful, which meant I was immature. And I even lost out on a job because of it. And what's really cool is that I realized in my life now that we can be silly and serious. There's that coexistence. We can have joy and have pain. There's that coexistence. And so the more I've discovered that, and this really came about last March and just before the height of the Black Lives Matter movement, where I realized I can be in extreme physical pain because of my condition, but be in total joy because of the health of my children or something going on for me. Or I can be in extreme emotional pain and be elated that I'm not feeling a level 7 pain in my body. Mm-hmm. Or one more step, with all the turmoil in the world these last 7 months and hundreds of years for the Black Lives Matter movement, but in these last 7 months since the death of George Floyd, feeling that anxiety and the pandemic and the administration that I don't support because it doesn't say white supremacy is not okay. So all these things are so awful, they're painful, and yet it is okay, no guilt nor shame, to feel the absolute joy of love, a new partnership, the giggles of my children, the smiles and serene presence of my friends. They can coexist. And so They have to, right?
Have-
They have
yeah.
to. And, we can't ignore the pain. Otherwise, our joy is not authentic as far as I'm seeing it. And we can't ignore the joy. Otherwise, we don't understand the pain. So I'd love to hear from you on that coexistence. And maybe even if you care to share any personal examples, feel free.
Well, all that you're saying, first of all, like, I want to just get back to, like, at that time when all of that was going on, I remember we were both holding spaces in our groups in different ways to recognize, like, Black mothers who were losing their sons and that whole experience, and bring that consciousness into our groups, even if that wasn't the thing that our groups were about. And I tuned into one of your lives, and you were like wearing those like little masks or whatever, those little offerings that Facebook gives you when you go on and you were cracking yourself up. Like, you couldn't really get a sentence out because you just were laughing so hard at yourself. And it just like lifted me so much and made me fall 10 times deeper in love with you for doing that. What I love about that, and what is so needed about that in this time, is that, okay, you are doing the work. You are creating a seat up front and center at your table to discuss, like the conversations you had, the webinars you had with many of your guests that I tuned into, talking about the lived experience of racism in our country.
Yeah.
So you're taking a great serving of that into your heart, but at the same time, you're not spiraling down with it. And that's what we cannot do, is we have to spiral up. And the only way to do that is to elevate your emotion, to create another opportunity for us to say, okay, this, and here we're going with it, because that's where the joy, I think, resides. For joy is like an alchemy to me, right? It's an interaction between, like, you and another person, or you and an animal, or you and nature, and that's the alchemy that we need to be creating in these times, especially if we want to advance and progress in our history. That, many historians will look back and say, like, yeah, we've been here before, and it's so frustrating to do that. So where are we going, and how are we going to get there? And on that roadmap is, the medicine is the lightheartedness.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So what would you say is your definition of joy?
when I think about joy, it's such an intimate quality to my activism, myself, in my life. And before 10 years ago, I was doing advocacy and awareness around violence against women, and looking to get to the cultural roots of that, and to really confront society. And I remember my partner and I one day walking through downtown DC, like, I'll never forget where we are. And we just stopped and looked at each other, because we were just mired in the heaviness of this awareness work, which is often like a woman hiding under a table with bruises. Like, that's what the picture looks like. And it wasn't elevating society's awareness. Like, society was looking away every time we showed them that picture. Nope, not me. So we were like, how can we do this from a place of joy? That was actually like our mission, is to, like, how can we tap into joy and to the appreciation of women and the celebration of women in people's hearts, to have this discussion about where we are culturally, so just, it seemed so strange to both of us to catch ourselves in that moment saying, we don't want to do this anymore unless we feel joy doing it, because it's a battle to do that kind of consciousness raising work with people who don't see it, right. So we wanted to feel the good feels, and make this sort of awareness take root. And I feel like that's what I still do when I work with women in their bodies, because so much of the way women are targeted and marketed at to approach their own bodies and to look at themselves is from a place of dread.
Mm-hmm.
Feel dread and then act, feel dread and then buy this, feel dread and then subscribe to this, try this, and I'm asking the question, can we feel joy for these bodies that have carried us through these lives? Can we appreciate these bodies and these wrinkles and these signatures of time that are expressing themselves? And can we say, yeah, that's part of me, and I celebrate that, I bring that here.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the joy to me within creating that, and then connecting with other women from that place of lifting women up and like recognizing like who they are, who they came, what are your gifts? What do you want to do? Like, because I know you don't really want to be stuck up obsessing with your body. Like, let's release this energy into like the divine purpose of why you're here. That to me is like joy. But what else is joy? Joy is like exuberance. Joy is like laughing out loud. Joy is shared,
It's interesting. I love what you said about the idea of waiting until, things kind of get dredged up and now I'm going to do something about it. Because that's also something I work with my clients on, is creating some really healthy habits and not just waiting till that moment when I feel so desperate I need to call out for help, but to actually not get to that place where you're so desperate that you need to call out for help, but that help is already there, that you're using that help along the way, that you've got your team, whether you've got your habits that are, self-care habits and routine that really helps navigate you being at least a portion in joy every day, as opposed to beating yourself into the ground. I mean, like, I remember eating Kit Kats and Ho-Hos a lot because I was a major sugar addict. I'm still a sugar addict. And then wondering why in 2 weeks, one, I gained weight again, but two, why I was so depressed and unhappy, because my body definitely reacts. So do many, but I'm talking about me right now. My body reacts to certain kinds of foods. And I know this. So why am I letting myself splurge, quote unquote, in a negative way to just be really unhappy 2 weeks later, then desperate again to, pick up the good habits and then splurge? It's a vicious cycle. And I think what I'm understanding now in my older age is that, that I get to choose and create joy. And part of that choice is also choosing what I do for myself each day, how I take care of myself, when I put my oxygen mask on, when I stop saying yes to people and saying no to people, when I start saying yes to myself. And that brings me tremendous joy, knowing that I'm making myself a priority. And I've seen, and you've seen, women that we work with all of a sudden go, oh, I can breathe. This feels good. And I'm wondering, in your life, if you can recall points of time where you've gotten this really beautiful feeling of joy and you've completely sabotaged it, and how you got yourself back up to allow it not to be just the funk, but the coexistence of, I'm in a funk and now I'm going to pull myself back up, or I'm going to ask help to pull myself back up so I can be in that mutual space.
Well, I wanted to say one thing about what you were talking about earlier about being proactive, before you get into the real mire of the situation. And it's like a health emergency, or, a emotional health emergency, is like the precondition to really prevent that from happening is like recognizing and valuing yourself, that inherent value of who you are, that's not conditional.
Right.
Is like the protective mechanism that keeps that from sliding so far, because then we don't have like these sort of conditioned reward systems for ourselves of like a treat that we know like we're going to punish ourselves, or they're going to punish us inwardly for their effects and tolls on our bodies. But
Right.
It's such a societally conditioned, it's so tricky, right? Like almost everything that we talk about when we talk about violence against women, or just inward directed violence against women, against themselves for their self-image or body image or whatever, Like it's got the emotional, personal history that is imprinted, you know, individually throughout life. But then there's like the undeniable societal collective that's forever coming in different layers, right? Through tradition, you know, through marketing, obviously. But, you know, so there's just like so many layers that we have to question and decondition ourselves from and really claim for ourselves, you know, and then we can see like what's left is us. And that's so valuable, you know. And so your question about have I felt like I have so many stories of self-sabotage, but I'm having a hard time placing like when joy was there first and then I went after it, like maybe like the unworthy thing, like you don't deserve this. Oh yeah. I think the greatest examples have been like when like significant sums of money have come to me in my life. Like when my father passed away, I inherited a little bit of money through his will. Well, through his life insurance, I should say. I gave almost all of it away. And to me, it was like, it was philanthropy, right? Like but the real reason, if I get down to it now and I look back, it was like, I don't deserve this. Who am I, like this white woman, like living like well kept already, like who am I to have this? Get rid of this. Like I shouldn't have this, you know. And I think there's probably many examples like that. Of course there are, that I can look back to my lives where I got something and I said, damn, I don't deserve this privilege. And there's truth in that, right? Like that I'm privileged. But like the more powerful place to come from with that would have been to value myself first. And then in a very informed way, redistribute the wealth in a really sustainable way where it would go really, really far. But to me, it was kind of just like deflecting as it came in, because I was like, Jesus, like, why? You know? So I think there's been a lot of cases of that in my life where that have tracked back to unworthiness. And I think that's an endemic sort of emotion that women in particular, in their specific and special quality, are processing and learning how to release at this time, is unworthiness.
Yeah. So in your life, whether it's back 10, 15 years or even in your childhood, you gave a lot of examples of joy in the beginning of our interview. And I'm wondering if you recall any kind of, well, first of all, do you feel that joy comes to you innately or that you have to work for it?
Well, did we say that joy was a choice? I feel like we said that earlier, and I do feel like it's a definite choice. It's definitely like, I remember being in the hospital with like a ruptured appendix and just like crying that like I was so grateful to have my health and to know that this was going to pass. Like my heart just broke for people who have diseases, you know, that they don't, chronic and very, very intense. They don't know when they're going to end, you know? And so I think that it's always a choice to be able to see your perspective and where you stand relative. And in that case, like we can find so much joy, even in the chaos, you know, of where even right now, you know, we have so much joy.
I think it's harder for some people than for others. I've always been a very optimistic person, but I've also dealt with mental illness and depression. Yeah. And yet I have a positive outlook on life. I have hope. And even in my darkest of days, there was always something like it sometimes it was way too small, but it was there that I could tap into. Because I'm not dead, you know, even with suicidal ideation at times in my life, I'm not gone. And so, but I know that there are some people that while it is a choice, maybe they don't have the tools to access that part of themselves. And so it sounds to me like you have that access, that you have those tools. And
Right.
I bring that up because I do believe it's a choice, but I don't know that the access and the tools are always there. Similar to, and we're not talking about this right now in this interview, but to the cause of, being an anti-racist and the issues of racism and a lot of people saying, well, they have that choice. They can get jobs, they can work. Well, yeah, but they didn't have the access for hundreds of years, and they didn't have the tools. And I think similarly with joy, some of us just do not know how to access that piece of us where there's hope. So I don't know. It sounded like it resonated. Yeah.
I so appreciate that nuance, right? Because like I was talking about me and like where I am in my life, that's where it is. Have I felt like that was always an option? Have I been able to see? No, I've not always had those tools. And I mean, that just lands so deeply with me when you speak of your experience with mental illness. And I'm thinking about my mother, who's like honestly in the hospital right now, and me talking to her this morning and like bumping into that thing where I realize as I'm telling her, like, let's find a way to look at what's going right, that she can't. Mm-hmm. Like that's the lesson, like up front and center with me, that's showing me like, and what I know about that situation is that, from the deep trauma that some people have experienced, they haven't gotten the tools, the framework to climb out of, mm-hmm. or to see a way out of. No, that doesn't feel like a choice. That's not a choice in their repertoire, on their menu.
Right.
The other thing,
equitable choice, right? Yeah.
No, it's another privilege.
Right.
It's another privilege, mm-hmm. to be able to be in this position to say, wow, mm-hmm. I'm so grateful, even though this is happening, that I'm here still.
Yeah.
In this position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's one of the things that I practice with my clients is I actually ask them to text me gratitudes and affirmations every day. And sometimes I respond and sometimes I don't, but it's about getting into the practice of diving in deeply and not losing sight of what could be bringing us joy, right? And I look to you as someone who is joyful, who has embraced her life and who has the capacity to help others make changes and shifts in their life so they can feel joy. And that's another reason why, yes, you're on this interview, right? Because I see you as someone who brings light into people's lives. So I definitely want to thank you for being here with me today. And I didn't even realize how late it got. I'm looking at the time going, oh, wow. But I would love just to give you a moment to explain the gifts that you had a recipe that you wanted to share with folks. I was going to try to share it while you talk. I'll try to find it so I can pull it up. But anything else you want to say about joy, authentic and wholehearted joy, about you, about what you do with your clients, about the gift that you're offering? I give the microphone to you.
Yeah, I would like to say one more thing before I drop off and tell y'all about this yummy thing I got here by my side, shotgun, in the interview. The shift from like survivor to creator is something that I'm exploring with the women I work with right now. And what I mean by that, and what has the extra nuance because of my background in working with domestic violence, with violence against women, with my own experience of having that, in my lifetime, is I used to identify for the like the street creds when I would come up, and I used to do performance art, and I would quite often speak with women who are like in battered women's shelters, domestic violence shelters. And I would identify myself as a survivor, first and foremost. And it hasn't been until this last year that I've challenged that identification and looked at like where that keeps me vibrationally if I'm a survivor. Because if I'm a survivor, then I'm always just surviving. That means like there's a struggle, there's a fight, there's something inherently. That's what that means to me, to survive. Like surviving is like the lower vibrations of, you know, managing hardships of life and managing the sort of trauma. And what I work with women to do is to heal their self-limiting beliefs from their lifetime, or even that they've inherited through their ancestry, to release those survival mechanisms and emotions and those patterns in their lives that are like keeping them from being creators and orchestrators of their divinity, of their purpose, of their, you know, of these higher faculties of like heart-based living, of joy.
Yeah.
You know, and gratitude. I mean, joy is like the highest, right? The highest emotion. It's the most elevated emotion. And to get yourself from anger even into joy is like, that's a big jump, you know? So I work with women to take those steps to progressively get to that point, and what you have to let go every step of the way. It's personal, it's ancestral, it's societal, you know, and to me, ceremony and ritual are the appropriate containers to take those steps through and to hold, you know. And so I'm working with women right now around ritual and ceremony. So divine right body is not RIGHT, it's RITE, divine right body, as in we're using ritual and ceremony to claim our value. And nice mute.
I was multitasking.
Wow, double-handed mute sneeze.
Thank you very much. Just bringing joy to all through a sneeze and muted sneeze.
Incredible. That's skillful. That's seasoned. I admire that.
Thank you, dear.
Transitioning away from surviving and into like, we deserve so much more.
Yeah.
I don't even like the word deserve. Deserve means like, deserve is even from a place of like low worth, you know, but we are, it's our divine, it's our birthright. Our divinity is our birthright. So that's really why I call what I do divine right body. And that's what I'm trying to get into with women, and to celebrate how far we've come and where we're going to go in this lifetime together. So a thing I really like to do is kind of reclaim things, right? So one of the things I really love to do as a nutrition coach is to reclaim treats, because I love chocolate. Like I'm on my cycle, like I got a million things going on. It's the freaking exactly the prime time for me to grab something sweet. My body wants it too. Like what you were saying, like our body wants sweet stuff sometimes. So I'm like, how can we create something that our tongue wants, and it's nourishing to our body? And so I made this cacao drink like when I was pregnant with my son back in 2014. And it was when I had to stop really drinking coffee. So I have this, it's my sacred cacao recipe right here. And
I'm bringing it up for everybody. This right here, right? Yeah.
That's it. So I use dates for the sweetness. You can use a little bit of maple syrup or some honey if you have that around the house. I don't use any nut milks just because I've lived abroad more than not in the last 10 years, and that stuff's expensive and hard to come by. So I use just a hot water or some brewed rooibos tea or something like that. And I just add like a tablespoon of coconut oil or a grass-fed butter.
Wow. It looks good.
It's delicious. So I love to put a lot of turmeric and ginger in there, and a little bit of black pepper. The piperine in the black pepper activates the curcumin, which is like the really anti-inflammatory component of turmeric that makes it so anti-inflammatory and has all the great things that we know turmeric does. And so and the coconut oil is just a good carrier for your brain, to feed your brain and to really help all these nutrients absorb. Oil is really important. in the right quantities. I know most of us have gotten out of that low fat thing, but it's really dangerous to women in particular to be low fat.
Yeah, we have our fats. Yeah, it's a reality.
Yeah.
As everybody listening, we need to have our fats. Women in particular, don't give up all of your fats. Okay, now you can.
I'm not saying 2 tablespoons of butter. I'm not saying 4 inches of avocado on your avocado toast.
Right.
It's got limits, but most of the vitamins that are the most important to us are fat soluble. That means they don't get into our membranes unless fat is carrying them across.
Yeah.
So that's why, again, it's an opportunity to put the oil or the grass-fed butter, depending on your preference and your dietary situation.
Yeah.
And today I've got the extra delicious kickers of cardamom powder and dandelion beverage, powdered dandelion in here, which has a lot of good body cleansing properties to it. And so you can really play around with it, and you can put all kinds of things. A lot of people stateside who have access can get a lot of the reishi mushroom and all of these other sorts of immune boosters, and they would be amazing in this drink. Collagen, for those of us who are rebuilding our guts, you can get great powdered collagen if that jives with your dietary preferences. So, oh man, don't get me going, Misha.
Yeah.
I love to talk with women, and I'm talking about women over and over again because it is my personal orientation and purpose in life to focus on women. They, to me, are the greatest return on my energetic investment to be working with and serving, because I know they ripple out, so that's where I be.
Feel the same. Absolutely. Yeah.
We can talk about all these things with nutrition and exercise, which I love and which are necessary, but until the self-limiting beliefs are addressed, diets and, any sort of, and I say diet in the most wide, broadest term that I can apply that word to say, choosing the things that work the best for your body is so personal, and we can't get there until we really have dealt with the value piece of the self, right? Because I don't ever want anyone to pick up a behavior change or a new routine coming from the spot of shame, the emotion of disgust or dread. We've got to get rid of those emotions first, or they will sabotage. Just to circle back to the sabotaging, the cycles of self-sabotage. That's why diets don't work.
Well, it's also, I think what's really important here is, as the women that we work with and all people in the world, it's about creating a practice that brings you present with your journey as opposed to your destination, right? It's not about where are you going to get. It's about how can you do, some of these elements, not all of them at once because it's overwhelming, that will then bring you in current time, self-care, self-love, nourishment, self-compassion, so that you can feel in your current time authentic and wholehearted joy for yourself, and with others. Right?
Mic drop. Tie that up with a bow. We're done with this, right? For sure. I was listening to your last interview with a woman, or one of the last with Jaime.
Oh yeah.
Jaime, there was a point where she said that self-care is a form of activism or something. Right? And I was just zing, 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 zing. That's exactly right.
Well, and I had mentioned when I was being interviewed by Renee Zukin yesterday, and on her in her group Midwest Elevation, and I shared with her that I was getting ready to interview Caress Fitch. They are someone who has a real good platform to help people understand the various levels of microaggression. And in the preparation conversation we had prior to the interview in my webinar, I was having a bit of a meltdown. I was exhausted and overwhelmed and feeling like I might be making mistakes, or I might not be doing this anti-racism thing right. And she asked me about my self-care. And I'm like, well, I haven't been sleeping that great lately. And she's like, Misha, you have got to take care of yourself to be the ally that we need. Yeah. And that was huge because I thought if I stopped to take care of myself, I was extra privileged, right? Because I have that choice. But she's like, no, we need you allies to take care of yourself. So when the other Jaime Balliard said it was a form of activism to take care of yourself, I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. And then when we're all taking care of ourselves, we all feel a hell of a lot more joyful, because we're getting shit done.
Yeah.
More
We
productive.
can't lose any of us, any of y'all to cancer, to any of these festering diseases that have taken so many of our, our allies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We got to take care of ourselves. We got to elevate.
Yep. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye to everybody on the podcast channel. Goodbye to everybody in the Facebook group. Jaime, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for interviewing with us today. And I know we'll plop all of the information. If you ever want to reach out to Jaime, everyone, whether you're on the podcast or you're in the Joy group, or if you're listening to this as a replay on YouTube, I will definitely make sure that access to Jaime is there. And once again, Jaime does one-on-one coaching, and you also have some groups, right?
Yeah, I'm really beta testing my group right now, but that will be something that I open up in the start of the year, but I still do individual coaching. And I would love for anyone who's interested, who has not yet hopped on to my SOS for Moms group. It's not just for mothers, but that's where I really share a lot of my daily sort of ways of existing and running a business and still making delicious food and finding a way and like accessing food that's good for our bodies and that is nourishing for the planet to produce, which I'm so passionate about. So
I actually joined one of your fasts, remember? I loved it. Yeah, terrific. So, and then just a reminder to everyone here in this group that I have a program starting on December 1st, the Jump into Joy. It's group work on the first and third Thursday of each month for 3 months. It's only $49 a month, and I'm super excited. We're going to talk, it's going to be for women, lesbian, bisexual, queer, trans identified women, to talk about sex, to talk about food, to talk about love, to talk about friendship, talk about joy. Talk about anger, all that coexisting stuff. So again, really great to have Jaime here. And thank you everyone for listening and watching, and have a beautiful, beautiful day. Today I call it Thankful Thursday. That's the reason for doing my podcast on Thursday. So we'll close with just 3 things Jaime and I are grateful for. We'll take turns. Jaime, what's one thing you're grateful for?
Health.
I'm grateful for the fall colors on the leaves that I still get to see living in Pennsylvania now.
I'm grateful for the jungle green that's outside my window. The vibrant. Thank you, Pachamama.
I'm grateful for my beautiful, spirited, and intelligent partner, Jody.
I'm grateful for my community of sisters in Costa Rica that have sprung up around me and have just enriched my life in ways beyond.
I'm grateful for so many more activists and anti-racists showing up in our country and the United States.
Bless. Misha, all the love, sister.
Yeah. And we'll say
thanks for coming on. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Ciao, ciao, mamacita.
And I click the stop live stream and
there
start record.